Rockin' Royal, rockin' Navy, know y'all with me, let's get it, baby, Rockin' Royal, rockin' Navy,
Welcome back to another edition of KSL.com Rockin' Royal podcast with Sean Walker, your host and BYU beat writer for KSL.com, coming at you with another basketball podcast. And I brought in a special guest this time, actually, a good friend of mine, former BYU graduate assistant. He's now the head coach at Pleasant Grove High School, Carsen Williams. Longtime listeners of the pod, longtime readers of KSL.com might remember him from his days at Mountain View when he led a wild run to the 4A title game. As a senior with the Bruins, he then went on to a career at Hartnell College, and he eventually went to grad school at BYU, where he got his master's degree, and he was a graduate assistant under Mark Pope for a little while. He's now the first-year head coach at Pleasant Grove, where Friday night he had an opportunity to coach against his former coach and a longtime mentor at Westlake High School now, Nate Carling. Nate Carling, who's been at Westlake for about a dozen years, and I can't believe that because he was brand new there when I moved to Utah, so I literally cannot believe that he's been there that long. But that's remiss. That's not important to the story. What is important is that Carsen has been learning on the fly as a first-year coach of a pretty storied program at PG, and had some ups, had some downs, and he really got a pretty emotional opportunity, he admitted to me afterwards, on this Friday evening. So we caught up a little bit about that, but then I also wanted to catch up with Carsen as a basketball mind, again, a rising head coach in the state of Utah, and somebody who knows this BYU basketball team. I wanted to catch up with him about what he's seen out of the Cougars this year through their 11-5 start, including a 2-3 start to Big 12 play. Carsen worked last year with, that entire roster, but he's worked a lot and become pretty good friends with guys like Trevin Nell and Dallin Hall, Fus Traore, Dawson Baker, Trey Stewart, most of the returning players on this year's squad. So I picked his brain a little bit about kind of what he's seen out of them and maybe what's worked, some stuff that hasn't worked, how first-year coach Kevin Young at the Y has kind of meshed a very high-powered incoming class with a group of experienced veterans to go along with the likes of 5-star Diego Demon, 4-star Kenan Kitchings, Rutgers transfer Mawit Mag, and so forth. You know the story by now. So it was a good time to catch up. I thought BYU got a very necessary win, maybe even a vital win this past Tuesday, 85-69 over Oklahoma State. You saw Dallin Hall and Diego Demon in particular start to work really well together down the stretch of that second half. I think that's really important for both of those guys. And maybe more than anything, they just snapped the funk that they had been in with 3 straight losses. Albeit 3 straight losses to some very good teams, a top 10 caliber team in Houston on the road. So I think that 86-55 loss, maybe take that one with a grain of salt. But then there was that brutal kind of late game collapse against Texas Tech at home that certainly didn't feel good for that squad. And then losing on the road 71-67 with some similar late game difficulties at TCU really hurt. So they needed a win against Oklahoma State. They got a win against Oklahoma State. I think they corrected some things that should be able to help them moving forward, including as recently as this Saturday on the road at Utah. It's the first in-conference rivalry game between BYU and the Utes since February 12th, 2011. The last time these two teams met as members of the same conference, they were back in the Mountain West, amazingly. BYU leads the all-time series 134-130 against the Utes, including a 16-34 mark at the Huntsman Center. You can bet that Craig Smith's side is going to be very difficult to beat on their home court and riding a lot of confidence of their own right now, coming off of a road win over TCU on Wednesday night, snapping the Horned Frogs' unbeaten run at home in Fort Worth to start the regular season. So I talked with that a little bit about Carsen. We also caught up about kind of the start to his coaching career at Pleasant Grove that I thought you guys might find interesting, including coaching against his former high school coach and mentor, Nate Carling, at Westlake, and what that was like for the first-year head coach.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've got just a great group of kids that care, that are concerned with the right things, that want to be great. And we've been a little up and down. We've had some hard lessons we've learned, but it's been a blast for me. Trying to learn how to be a head coach and
Sure.
just form a bond with these boys. And ultimately, basketball has given me so much, just in terms of relationships and experiences. And, at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. And that's what we're trying to foster. And I think they've really embraced that. And, we are making progress and getting better. I'm excited to see where we can get. So
the game is the game. I mean, you've known basketball since you could walk, really, from your days at Mountain View to college and coaching a little bit here at Westlake, where you guys are at right now with the JV team and whatnot. So the game is the same. I imagine that probably maybe hasn't kind of taken you by surprise, if you will. But what has maybe shocked you a little bit as a first-time head coach, first-time varsity head coach at PG? Was there something that you stepped in and you were like, oh, yeah, that's my job now?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think just a lot of things that, just the gravity of being in that chair, right? I mean, I've been, I coached high school for 4 years, and my 2 years at BYU, prior to being a head coach now. It's really easy as an assistant coach or as a fan to watch a game and,
Sure.
Things seem cut and dry and those decisions, but it's just, it weighs on you, and there's just so many factors you think about where, it's a really hard job. And I knew it was a hard job, but, it's been, a lot tougher even than I thought it would be,
Sure.
even being around the phenomenal, mentors that I've had, and, going through some of those growing pains and trying to figure things out.
One of those mentors you faced tonight here at Westlake, and Nate Carling, who's been here for a dozen years, which blew my mind. I'm like, wait, has Nate really been here for that long? Like, I was a little bit shocked. What was it like going up against your ex-coach, your former mentor, like a guy who's kind of had I'd say a pretty decent sized hand in your career, if I can kind of step out of my own a little bit there? What was it like kind of going up against him?
Yeah, I mean, a decent sized hand is quite the understatement. I owe so much to Nate Carling. I mean, I played for him as a high school kid back at Mountain View High School in Orem, where he just, believed in me and allowed me to be, so much better than I ever, thought I would, and just, in that role. And we had a really fun team with my best friends and just went on a great run, where he was, the coach of the year when I was in high school back then. And, we lost to a team with an NBA player and a couple other D1 players, and we were right there, at the end of the game with a couple of guys that played JUCO, but, a lot less size. And we just, he taught us how to fight. And, fast forward where, I spent 4 years as his assistant coach. And they were just so formative for me, and just, learning the game at a higher level, and just the way he treats people and the way he cares about people. I'm really not in the coaching business without Nate Carling. And nor do I get the opportunities that I've had at BYU with the incredible experience that was, and, Coach Pope being such a mentor for me, but those never happen without Nate Carling. Yeah. And, even him helping me as a player to be able to be good enough to play some college basketball, and then giving me an opportunity and trusting me so much as an assistant coach on his staff, and reaching, heights when I was here, where, we had our first region championship at Westlake for a boys basketball team. We had a state championship appearance, with a team that was number one all year long. And he's just, he's an incredible tactician, but so much more so than that is just the human being that he is. And that's really, something that I have just been so grateful for, in a way that it's, I can't express to him enough of what he's done for me in that regard. So, it was a weird feeling for me to come back here. I've spent who knows how many thousands of hours.
Wearing a different shade of blue and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming back to this gym on, being on the opposite bench and knowing exactly what they're about, and, knowing what he's going to try to do. And, they beat us at the game that I know that they're about. And, a lot of those things we're trying to implement as well. And we've done a good job of it. But they got the best of us tonight. But it's just, our relationship is so much bigger than basketball.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we've played, we're in the same region, there's a lot of, competition there, but after every game, we've played 2 games each so far. And we've spoken on the phone, whether I win or lose, whether he wins or loses, we talk on the phone, we see how each other are doing. We'll share some, tidbits and things like that to help each other out, but just, it's such a, relationship where, he wants the best for me, I want the best for him, and it's been such a blessing in my life in those regards.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the old saying right now, never meet your heroes because they're bound to disappoint you. But it sounds like Coach Carling's got a little bit of hero status in Carsen Williams' book.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will, he'll always be just someone that has been just incredibly influential, and, he's, I owe a lot to him. So he's been great for me.
For sure. I told you I was going to put you on the spot a little bit with your alma mater, with your old team over there at BYU. You're a busy man, first-year head coach at BG, right. So I'm going to throw that out there. But I got to imagine there's one eye that kind of wanders towards Provo every now and then, watching some of the guys that you coach that are still over there, help develop guys like Trevin Nell and Dallin Hall and Trey Stewart and some of those guys. What do you kind of make of this BYU team? A little bit of a new look team, but what do you make of kind of some of those guys and sort of what they're going through right now in the early part of their season? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's been more growing pains than a lot of us anticipated, right? Where they've had some struggles and, lost some tough games where they were right there, down the stretch. At the end of the day, the DNA of those guys that you mentioned, the Dallin Halls, Trevin Nell, Trey Stewart, Fus Traore, Dawson Baker, just down the line. Those are just such high quality individuals that they know how to win basketball games and they care about each other. They've got really talented, new pieces and Keba and Yegor and Cannon and, a bunch of those guys where I think they're really close to kind of turning the corner on some of that stuff where, it is a big learning curve. And, the college game and the game at BYU, it's different than what some of those guys are used to. And it's also, Yegor and Dallin, I think, are such talented, brilliant minds of basketball. I don't know Yegor personally, but just the things I hear and just watching him play. I watched the practice once this summer. It took me 5 minutes to think that, he's just his IQ as a passer is just, out of this world. Oh, yeah, it's incredible. And so, him and Dallin are, they can complement each other so well. And it's been a shame, just with the injuries and things, they had such little time to learn how to play together. They only had a game or two probably against, real competition to try to do that. And then you're thrust into Big 12 play and told to, hey, you've both always been on ball, and now figure out how one of you is going to be off ball against, the toughest, most physical defensive teams in the country. That's such a hard thing to try to figure out on the fly against anybody, especially at this level of competition. Yeah. And I think they've really started to get there where that chemistry is, I've seen spurts less, I don't catch a lot, but when I do, it looks more comfortable now. I think they're really getting close to just being able to feed off each other, kind of take turns, being more of that pick and roll guy. And, they're both, Yegor's, can really shoot the ball. Obviously has struggled a little bit shooting it, but they're both really capable shooters. And I think that breakthrough's coming. Yeah. Where, I think as a group, they're learning the physicality and toughness collectively that they've got to have. I see that coming real soon. Yeah. Well, they both found themselves a little bit, I think, the other night against Oklahoma State, which, knowing Dallin for years and years, was good to see, I think, after he kind of struggled a little bit for a night or two before that and now coming off the bench and all of that. But I think that just gives them confidence coming up to this weekend's game that probably no one in the state, I think, needs an introduction to, right? You had a couple of battles when you were at BYU with Utah and kind of that gym, the Huntsman Center, the crowd, the fan base, even that lineup, most of that lineup as recently as last year, right? What do you kind of make of this in-state rivalry game, and how cool is it to have it back as a conference game with all of those stakes? Right. Oh, I mean, I think it's so much fun. I see some of the banter on Twitter and things like that are just, a lot of fun, with fans going back and forth and, people care and it's passionate and, no matter if, a couple of years ago when we played that game 2 years ago, we weren't having the best year and they were playing pretty well and we got them at home. And, last year was kind of, it had flipped where we were undefeated coming into that game and they had some struggles going into it and they got the best of us there. So, really you can throw out all logic in those games and it's just, both teams are going to battle and come down to the wire. It's just like one or two plays that can really make the difference. But it's just, those rivalry games are so much fun. I'm so glad that they're, back on, to play those games twice and, to try to earn those bragging rights and just, the things that are on the line and, the heart that's played with. It's something that, you don't see in a lot of ways and, outside of that. And I'm really looking forward to watching it. You got a prediction for tomorrow? Or? Oh, of course. I've got to ride with the Cougs, always. Those are my guys. And, I think tomorrow's the start of, it's turning the corner, Dallin, Yegor making their game. My guys, Trev and Doss,
hitting those open threes, Foose on the block, Cape with a couple lobs. I can see it right now. So I'm for sure riding that way.
He's so quick to answer that. I probably didn't even need to ask that question. That was a dumb question on my part. You can say that. Carsen Williams, former BYU graduate assistant, now head coach over at Pleasant Grove High School. BYU fans, if you need somewhere to go on Friday nights, the gym at PG, it's always welcome to Coug Nation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, hopefully we get some future Cougs, on the floor and guys that are going to have chances there as well. So.
Rock your hands. Rockabye babies, rock the stands with the fans. If you with us, raise your hands. Rockabye baby, rockin' Navy. Shout out to my teams, wives and babies. Rockin' Royal.